super duper marquee games. I do think that's by design from college basketball. I think they're smart enough to know on these Saturdays where we're going to get NFL games, people probably won't be plugged into college basketball too much. On top of that, obviously Sundays, you try to limit the games that you play. So I think we're still another 2 or 3 weeks from like crazy college basketball Saturdays and Sundays. But there were a couple results from Saturday and a little bit into Sunday that I do want to talk about. We'll get to Indiana losing again in a minute. UConn picking up a nice win. Arizona losing to Washington State. What does that mean? We'll talk about all those very briefly. But where I want to start is in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, baby, as Alabama laid the smackdown on Kentucky. The final score, a lot to a little. Kentucky, another just complete disaster on Saturday. And what I want to do in this segment is, and I'm gonna pull the Rod Tidwell, Jerry Maguire. I'm not going to do what you all think I'm going to do in this segment. I think it'd be easy on a day like today to yell and scream and Kentucky stinks and what's wrong with them and they're terrible and fire John Calipari and this and that. What I will say, if you stay till the end of the segment, I will tell you this. We are going to talk about Kentucky from the John Calipari perspective. I called a couple people in the know about a Texas opportunity. I think Coach Cal would listen. So we'll talk about that to end this segment after we talk about these games. But rather than just tearing apart Kentucky for another time after we've done it time and time again this year, I instead want to actually spend a little bit of time talking about Alabama because Alabama dominated this game. Alabama in Joe Lunardi's latest bracketology coming into the weekend actually had a number 1 seed in his bracketology. Remember, they have already beaten 2 teams that were ranked number 1 in the country at the time that they played them. They already beat North Carolina. They already beat Houston at Houston. They beat a good Memphis team at home. They opened on the road with a strong showing against a good Mississippi State team on the road to again open SEC play. And so I bring it all up because here's my question. In a season where there is no super obvious best team in college basketball, my question for you, is it possible that the Alabama Crimson Tide are the best team in college basketball? I know some of you are saying, Torres, you're crazy. You're overreacting to Kentucky. Let's talk about it. And really where I want to start is, again, I'm going to pull the Rod Tidwell. I'm not going to do what you all think I'm going to do. And what I would tell you is this, is that behind the scenes right now, on top of this podcast, on top of all the things we do at AT Media, I am working on kind of a pretty big college hoops project that I hopefully will have some more details on in the coming weeks and months into March. But why I bring it up is this, is that in the course of starting that project, I'm doing a lot of research on a lot of teams, looking at a lot of just different numbers and data on all of these teams, what makes them good, what makes them bad. Not just Alabama, but, Texas, Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, whatever. So I'm starting this project. And as I really started it this past week, something really struck me. And I wish I had tweeted it because I would have looked really smart on Saturday. But it's that I think Alabama might actually be legitimately certainly the most complete team in college basketball. I think that UConn's probably in the conversation. UConn did beat Alabama earlier this year. But I think they're certainly at the very least a much more complete team than people give them credit for, right? Because when you think about Alabama, you think about Nate Oates, you think about the former high school math teacher, and you think about all the stuff that you've heard about their offense. All they do is shoot threes or layups at the rim. And that's pretty much exactly true. I think they took 1 mid-range jumper on Saturday, and the offense is, again, fantastic. Last year, Alabama took a little bit of a step back. This year, they're very good, averaging 85 points per game, top 10 nationally, shooting the 3-ball well at about 35%. What I don't think people realize, though, is that the offense is far from the only thing that is making Alabama an elite team this year. And so, again, in the course of doing this project, here are some stats for you on Alabama. Do you know Alabama, on top of having an offense that scores on average in the top 10 nationally, they're also top 10 in the country in field goal percentage defense. They're also number 10 in the country in 2-point defense, meaning specifically shots within the 3-point arc, specifically shots at the rim. They rank 11th nationally in block shots, and they rank 15th nationally in rebounding. So if all they did was score a bunch of points, they'd still probably be a really good team. But when you take a team that is not only averaging in the top 10 nationally in scoring, but they're also in the top 10 nationally in field goal percentage defense. They're also in the top 15 nationally in blocks per game. They're also in the top 15 nationally in rebounding. And oh, by the way, they're in the top 10 again in 2-point defense. I'm just going to ask you a question. If you can score a lot, if you can keep the other team from getting high percentage shots, if you protect the rim and rebound, like what part of basketball is Alabama not good at? And so a couple things stand out about all these stats. It'd be one thing if you played nobody in the preseason or in the pre-conference play. Alabama's probably played the toughest schedule in college basketball. They went to the PK 85. They played UConn. They played North Carolina. They played Michigan State. Oh, by the way, they get back from the PK 85. That's where it's going to get lighter, right? No. They played Gonzaga on a neutral court in the state of Alabama. They played at Houston. They played Memphis at home. Those are 3 NCAA tournament teams right there, on top of the 3 NCAA tournament teams that they played in Portland. And they opened SEC play against a good Mississippi State team that they just throttled at Mississippi State. And so I'm telling you, Alabama is putting up top 10 stats in basically every category that matters against what I would argue is the toughest schedule in college basketball. Here's what makes it even more impressive, though. Most of their best players are freshmen. Brandon Miller, 5-star guy. I think he's going to be the number 2 pick in the draft behind Victor Wembanyama. Noah Clowney has been unbelievable, kind of an under-the-radar guy that really Alabama kind of discovered out of nowhere. I believe he was playing, they call it an unaffiliated grassroots team, which basically means it wasn't a Nike, Under Armour, or Adidas team in high school. And also, Jaden Bradley's really good too. Their second leading scorer is a transfer. Their 5th leading scorer, Namari Burnett, is currently injured right now. So we have 5 guys. Their 5 leading scorers didn't play for the team last year, and 3 of the top 5 are freshmen. It speaks to, I think this is one of the great stories in college basketball. Toughest schedule in the country, bunch of freshmen and transfers, and they have been awesome. Now, look, there's a lot of time left in the season. It won't get any easier this week because I did not know this until the last couple days, but they actually go to Bud Walton Arena on Wednesday night. Circle your calendar. Alabama at Arkansas on Wednesday. Then they have a good LSU team. Then they play at Missouri. They play at Oklahoma in the Big 12 SEC Challenge. So I bring it up because there's a lot of basketball left and teams can peak too early. But here's my question. In a year where there's no great teams in college basketball, tell me why we can't even make the argument that Alabama might be the best team in college basketball. Okay. Because think about the rest of college basketball. Purdue, last week, lost at home to a good Rutgers team, but they lost and easily could have lost to Ohio State a few days later. They hit a 3 essentially at the buzzer to win the game. Purdue easily could have gone 0-2 last week. This week, UConn, really good team. Love UConn. Went to UConn. You guys and girls know that. Lost their first 2 games, lost 2 games in a row coming into Saturday against a good Creighton team. Now, to UConn's credit, they did win against Creighton. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But lost to Xavier, lost at Providence. UConn's really good. I don't think they're playing as well as they were in November. Arizona just lost to Washington State at home. So you start to go, oh, by the way, Houston, Alabama won at Houston. So I only bring it up to say in a sport where there are no teams that are totally separating themselves from the pack, is it time to talk about Alabama as the number 1 team in college basketball? I'll be honest. I actually kind of think that it is.